My name's Aiden. I'm 35, and I used to think that family meant something. That no matter how weird or dysfunctional things got, blood would at least guarantee a shred of loyalty. Turns out, that's just another bedtime story people tell themselves to sleep easier. I learned the hard way, at Thanksgiving, of all places. For context, I'm the oldest of three. My sister, Clara, is 32 and has always been the sparkling one. You know the type: varsity cheer captain, beauty pageant finalist, always with some new boyfriend hanging on her every word. Then there's Evan, the youngest at 28, who mostly keeps his head down, never rocks the boat, and usually sides with whoever shouts the loudest. Our parents, Nora and George, divorced when we were in our teens, and somehow Clara managed to turn even that into a stage performance, crying dramatically in front of friends, playing both sides for extra attention. Meanwhile, I was working 2 part-time jobs at 16 just to help mom cover rent. Clara got a car at graduation. I got a stack of unpaid utility bills. After college, I landed a solid job in finance, made smart decisions, invested early. I bought a modest duplex by 27, paid off my student loans by 30, and last year, I launched a tech startup that finally hit 6 figures in revenue. Through all of this, I tried to be generous. I never rubbed my success in anyone's face, never kept tabs, but I did cover Evan's medical bills once after he got laid off. I helped Clara with a down payment when she got married. I even offered to co-sign a loan when Dad's new business idea tanked, though, thank God, the bank declined it. I thought I was being a good brother. Turns out, I was just playing the fool in their story. Things started shifting about 6 months ago. Clara's texts slowed down. Evan stopped answering my calls. Mom kept replying with short, vague messages. Busy. We'll talk soon. Then I heard from a cousin that Clara was pregnant, and I hadn't even known. When I congratulated her, she replied, "Oh, I thought Evan told you." He didn't. It was subtle at first. Missed group invites, decisions made without me, family dinners I wasn't aware of until after the fact. I chalked it up to life, people drifting, but something felt deliberate. Then came Thanksgiving. Clara insisted on hosting this year, a change from our usual rotating pattern. Her new house, bigger, flashier, thanks to her husband's real estate connections, was perfect for entertaining, as she put it. I offered to bring wine and dessert, but she said, "Don't worry, everything's handled. Just bring yourself." That should have been the first red flag. I arrived right on time, pie and a bottle of Syrah in hand. The door was already ajar, laughter spilling out. Inside, the house was decorated like something out of a magazine. Gold trim, twinkling lights, custom name cards at the table. But mine wasn't there. I stood in the entryway for a second, confused, until I spotted a folded napkin on a bar stool in the corner with Aiden scribbled on it. No plate, no cutlery, just a name. I tried to keep it together. I walked over, placed my pie on the counter, and greeted everyone with a smile that felt like a mask. No one stood up. No one seemed particularly surprised or excited to see me. Clara gave me a cheek kiss and a sing-song, "You made it," like I was a distant coworker crashing a private party. Evan gave me a half-hearted wave from across the room. Even Mom avoided eye contact. Dinner started late. Clara's husband, Julian, made a long toast about gratitude and embracing those who uplift us. I wasn't mentioned once. I raised my glass anyway. The food was delicious, no complaints there. But the energy? I could feel it in my bones, an undercurrent, like everyone was in on something I wasn't. Conversations hushed when I walked past. Whispering resumed when I sat down. Julian kept throwing glances at Clara. Evan wouldn't meet my eye. Then, just as we were clearing plates for dessert, Clara stood up and tapped her wine glass with a spoon. "I have an announcement," she said, beaming. "One that's long overdue." Everyone turned toward her, already smiling like they knew what was coming. She looked directly at me. We took a vote. Me, Mom, Evan, and Julian. And we've decided. You're officially out of the family. There was laughter. Actual laughter. Applause. Evan clinked his glass. Mom raised hers in a slow, solemn toast like it was a eulogy. Even Clara's baby bump seemed smug. I stared at her for a second, blinking slowly, trying to decide if this was some bizarre family prank. But their eyes were serious. Cold. Certain. I felt my chest tighten. A cocktail of betrayal, rage, and deep, nauseating sadness swirled in my gut. But I didn't flinch. I just smiled. A calm, almost serene smile. reached down into my bag beside the stool. In that case, I said quietly, this won't be necessary. I pulled out a manila folder and dropped it on the table. The room fell silent. Clara's smile faltered. She reached for it, flipping it open. Her eyes scanned the first page, then the second. By the third, her mouth parted slightly, and the color drained from her face. "What is this?" she said, her voice brittle. Julian leaned over her shoulder, reading. Evan stood up. Mom took a step forward. The screaming started before anyone even finished their turkey. Julian's chair scraped hard against the floor as he jerked it back, his voice rising. "You're bluffing." Clara shook her head, still staring down at the folder like it might catch fire. Her hand trembled as she turned another page. No, he's not. He's not bluffing," she whispered. Mom grabbed the papers from Clara's lap and started flipping through them. Her eyes widened. What did you do, Aiden?" I stayed seated, calm, collected. My heart was pounding, sure, but I'd rehearsed this moment in my head too many times to let it show. "That," I said, nodding at the folder, "is a full breakdown of every financial contribution I've made to this family over the last 12 years. Every rent payment, every loan, every wire transfer. You know that beautiful nursery upstairs, Clara? The one with the custom wallpaper? Paid for by the bonus I got from selling my shares in early spring. And Evan, remember when your car died in 2021 and I helped out? That wasn't a gift. That was a personal loan with a delayed repayment clause, one you never honored. That document includes the contract you signed and forgot about." Clara looked like she'd been punched. Julian's mouth opened and closed like a goldfish. Evan sat down slowly, eyes darting around the room. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing. "I never asked for recognition," I continued. "I didn't care about praise or credit. But you don't get to vote me out of a family I've basically been financially holding together for a decade." Clara stood up so fast her wine glass tipped over, staining the pristine white tablecloth. "You're trying to humiliate me." "No," I replied, standing too. "You did that yourself when you decided to publicly cut me out like I was some kind of parasite." Julian grabbed the folder from the table and started flipping through it himself. "Wait, these legal notices. What's this about the deed transfer?" "Ah, yes," I said casually. Funny thing, when Clara asked for help with her down payment last year, she was in such a rush, she never read the fine print on the paperwork I sent over. I bought half that house. Legally. On record. And when I found out I wasn't even invited to your baby shower, that's when I started updating my estate lawyer. You'll see the recent motion on the last page. Clara's voice broke. "You're selling the house?" "No," I said, folding my arms. "I'm selling my share of the house. And if that makes it unsellable as a whole, well, that's your problem." Julian looked pale now, sweat forming at his temples. "This is insane. You can't just drop this on us." "I actually can," I said, "because while you were all busy coordinating this little vote, I was protecting myself." Mom finally found her voice. "Aiden, stop this. You're taking it too far." I turned to her slowly. "Too far? You all publicly disowned me like I was an embarrassment. You watched Clara humiliate me and toasted to it. And now you're upset that I didn't roll over like usual." Evan spoke up finally. "We didn't think you'd actually." "You didn't think, Evan. That's the problem. None of you did." Clara had tears in her eyes now, though whether from anger, embarrassment, or fear, I couldn't tell. "You're going to destroy this family." "No," I said. "I'm just walking away from the wreckage. You set the fire. I just stopped paying for the matches." The room had gone utterly silent except for the ticking of the ornate clock over the mantel. I looked around at the people who had once been my family, people I'd supported, loved, forgiven more times than I could count. All of them staring back at me now like I was some unrecognizable stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe I'd finally become someone who didn't bend just to keep the peace. I picked up my coat from the back of the bar stool and started for the door. Clara moved as if to stop me, but Julian pulled her back. Just as I reached the threshold, I turned around. "Oh, and one last thing," I said. "Check your accounts by morning." I'm pulling every joint access I still had. Shared credit cards, utilities, streaming accounts, everything. Consider it part of the independence you voted for. And with that, I walked out into the cold November night. Behind me, I heard Clara's voice rising again. The arguing had already begun, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. For once, the only person I was answering to was me. I didn't drive home right away. Instead, I sat in my car with the engine idling, watching the warm lights flicker through the frosted windows of Clara's house. For years, that glow had meant something: tradition, laughter, comfort. But now, it looked fake, like a stage set after the play had ended, lights still on, but no story left to tell. I checked my phone. No missed calls. No texts. Not even from Evan, who used to call me about everything: car trouble, job interviews, even what color tie to wear to a wedding once. Just silence. Fine. I drove across town to my apartment, a penthouse I never bragged about. It was simple, sleek, and paid off in full. I poured myself a glass of scotch, sat down by the window, and pulled out the second folder from my bag, the one I hadn't shown them yet. Inside were copies of every revised document I'd filed over the last 2 months. Trust modifications, property liens, deed reversals, quiet title actions, legal jargon, all carefully reviewed by my attorney. I hadn't planned to go nuclear tonight. I was hoping I wouldn't need to. But Clara made the decision for me the moment she clinked her glass. That vote. It gave me permission. See, they thought they were cutting me off. What they didn't know was that I'd already started preparing to walk away long before Thanksgiving. The subtle exclusion, the group chats I was silently dropped from, the holidays I stopped getting invited to. It hurt. At first, it really did. But it also gave me space to see things clearly. To see them clearly. Clara had always been the golden child. The one with the emotional meltdowns, the dramatics, the fake apologies. I used to clean up her messes, pay her debts, cover for her when she flaked on Mom's birthday or forgot Evan's graduation. And she always said thank you, until she didn't. Until it was expected, demanded. Anything less was treated like betrayal. Mom enabled it. She always had. She's just going through a phase, she'd say. That phase lasted 20 years. And Evan? I don't think he ever meant to be cruel. But he followed where it was easy, and Clara had a gravitational pull. It wasn't just about money. It was the way they laughed when I wasn't around. The decisions made in rooms I was no longer invited into. Like when they refinanced the family cabin without telling me, even though my name was still on the deed. Or when they started sending me reimbursement requests for group expenses I wasn't even a part of. Clara's baby shower. Mom's new kitchen renovation. The emergency vet bills for Julian's dog. They'd slowly begun treating me less like family and more like a funding source. A silent partner who never showed up to the meetings but was always expected to foot the bill. The real turning point came in September. I got a notification from my financial institution about a flagged transaction. Clara had tried to take out a line of credit against the house I partially owned, without my signature. The bank denied it, thankfully, but I started digging. That's when I found it all. The forged documents. The quiet edits to our original agreement. The whispers of just take Aiden off, he won't care. I cared. That's when I hired the lawyer. The next morning, I met with him again. I handed over the second folder. Proceed, he asked. I nodded. Full throttle. It was never about revenge. Not at first. But there comes a time when protecting yourself starts to look like vengeance to the people who were benefiting from your silence. By Monday, they'd start to notice. The utilities Clara never paid for in full transferred back into her name. The portion of Evan's tuition I'd been secretly covering, revoked, effective immediately. Mom's condo renovation. The contractor would be calling about the halted payment and the lien I'd filed until she repaid me the $18,400 she borrowed temporarily. And the cabin? The one they thought was theirs to refinance and remodel without me? I'd already moved the paperwork. I now own 100%. But the true centerpiece, the one that would crack the whole thing wide open, was something none of them knew about yet. Clara's husband, Julian, had quietly pitched me on an investment 6 months ago. A luxury housing development. He needed seed funding, fast, and promised equity in return. I gave it to him, but I never signed the paperwork that secured his half. He thought we were partners. Legally, I was his sole investor, meaning everything, every cent poured into that development, belonged to me. And Clara? She'd included that on her baby registry. I stared out the window as the first snowflakes began to fall, swirling gently under the glow of the city lights. For the first time in years, I felt something that had long evaded me. Peace. The phone buzzed. It was Evan. I didn't pick up. Instead, I watched it ring until it stopped, and then I opened the new group message titled, "We Need to Talk." The first message was from Mom. "You've made your point. but this is still family. Then Clara, what you did tonight was cruel. And finally, Evan, please call me. I set the phone face down. Let them stew. They wanted me gone. Now, they were about to find out what that really meant. I didn't respond to the group chat that night, or the next day, or the day after that. I left the messages unread, not because I didn't see them, but because I wanted them to feel the silence, to sit in it. Let it wrap around them the way their rejection had wrapped around me for years. Tight, suffocating, and cold. By the time Friday rolled around, things had already begun unraveling on their end. It started with the utilities. Julian called me 5 times in one morning. No voicemail, just repeated calls. I didn't answer. Then came an email. The heating's been shut off. Clara's 8 months pregnant. Aiden, we need to resolve this. I don't care what happened at dinner. Can we talk? I forwarded it to my lawyer with one line. All utility accounts now legally Clara's responsibility as of the signed transfer. That same afternoon, Evan sent a single, frantic text. They froze my campus account. I can't access anything. Please. I didn't mean for it to go this far. He hadn't known I was the co-signer on his school financial aid extension. He also didn't know that I'd quietly pulled it back 2 days earlier. A week later, the fallout really hit. Clara's house, their house, as she always called it, was under review for partition. The real estate lawyer, acting on my behalf, had submitted an intent to sell my 50% stake. The appraisal team arrived that Thursday morning. Clara must have lost her mind. I heard from the agent that she stood on the lawn in pajamas, screaming at the man measuring the front walkway. Julian was livid. He emailed again, this time CCNG his lawyer, trying to challenge the legitimacy of my ownership. The reply from my end was swift and surgical. Scanned documents, notarized agreements, timelines. Everything airtight. Julian had never filed his paperwork correctly. I had. They were stunned into silence. But that wasn't the end of it. Remember Julian's real estate project? The shiny development he'd pitched as our future gold mine. The one I'd funded in full. Well, after our Thanksgiving debacle, I sent a formal withdrawal notice to the planning committee under my company name. Since Julian had never legally secured equity, the permits, the lots, and the project assets now belonged solely to me. I sold the land the following week to a rival firm. For profit. Julian went ballistic. He actually showed up at my building, pounding on the lobby doors, trying to get in. Security escorted him out. I watched from my window, arms crossed. That night, Clara called me for the first time since Thanksgiving. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was quieter than I'd expected. No venom. No fury. Just worn-out exhaustion. I get it now, she said. You weren't just trying to hurt us. You were protecting yourself. I messed up. We all did. I thought you'd always be there. You always were. Even when we didn't deserve it. There was a pause, and I heard a shaky inhale. I don't expect you to forgive us. I just wanted you to know that. I saved the voicemail. Not out of sentimentality, but because I wanted to remember what accountability sounded like, even if it came years late. Then Mom called. That one I did answer. Aiden, she said, her voice uncertain. Are you really cutting us off? I didn't answer right away. I was looking out my window again, watching snow coat the tops of the city's skyscrapers, like powdered sugar settling on cold steel. Mom, I said finally, you cut me off a long time ago. You just didn't do it with words, you did it with choices. Over and over. She was quiet. Then, you're right. That stopped me. It shouldn't have, but it did. My heart gave a little jump. After everything, some tiny, stubborn part of me still wanted to believe she saw me. I let Clara get away with too much. I let you carry too much. I didn't want to believe things were as bad as they were. She continued, her voice breaking. I'm sorry. I sat down on the edge of my bed, swallowing the lump that rose unexpectedly in my throat. Not because her apology fixed anything, but because I knew how much it had cost her to say it. I don't hate you, I said. Any of you. I'm done sacrificing my peace for people who only see my value in what I give them. There was another long silence. Are you coming to Christmas? She asked softly. I laughed once dryly. I think I'll pass this year. The weeks rolled by. Clara and Julian were forced to buy out my share of the house if they wanted to keep it. That meant a massive loan, one that Julian had to scramble to secure. I heard through a mutual contact that he took a second mortgage on his parents' house to cover it. Evan took a semester off to regroup. He sent me a letter, handwritten. It was awkward and rambling, but sincere. He said he'd gotten too used to leaning on me and not enough time figuring out who he was without me. I appreciated that. And me? I took my piece and ran with it. I booked a solo trip to Norway for January. Rented a cabin overlooking a frozen fjord. No Wi-Fi, no cell service. Just snow, wood, and silence. It was the most present I'd felt in years. When I got back, I launched a new venture, one not tied to anyone else's expectations. I donated a portion of the profits to adult scholarship programs. Quietly, no fanfare. I saw Clara again once. It was spring. I was walking through a park, and she was there with the baby, her daughter, Lily. She looked tired. Older somehow. Life had humbled her. She waved. I nodded. And that was enough. Families don't always break with a bang. Sometimes it's 1,000 small cuts over time, barely noticeable until one day you look down and realize you're bleeding from everywhere. But sometimes, walking away isn't the end. Sometimes, it's the beginning. Of healing. Of self-respect. Of peace. So no, I wasn't out of the family. I just decided to build one of my own. On my own terms.